The Mafia's Good Girl, Chapter 18. 3 days later. Sicily, Italy. Damon's point of view. Goddamn, finally this shit's over. Damon straightened his suit and climbed onto his black SUV. Adrian circled around and got into the car from the other side. His other men got into the other 2 cars behind him, and they drove out of this massive estate on the southern part of Italy. Italy's a beautiful country, Damon. Why are you in such a rush to leave it? Adrian chuckled. I mean, I have a wife waiting back home, but you can stay here a couple of days and take some time off. And why would I do that? Damon scoffed. You've been working so hard, boss. You should get some rest sometime. Damon let out a laugh. There's no rest for the living, Adrian, he said. It's only for the dead. Damon made it seem like he was joking, but Adrian knew he was serious. For the past 5 years, ever since he took over, Damon had never taken a day off from work. He had one goal in his mind, to destroy all of the Maranzano family, and he wouldn't rest until it is done. Is there maybe another reason why you want to go back so quickly? Adrian said suddenly, breaking Damon's train of thought. What are you talking about? The girl has been staying for a long time in the estate. Normally, you don't keep them past 3 days. You don't even keep your number one for more than 2 weeks, Adrian said as he threw his gaze out the window. I'm just saying, you don't just drink a 30-year-old scotch all at once, Aid. You gotta savor it, Damon replied. So you're saying she's a 30-year-old scotch? Adrian laughed. Shut up. Damon rolled his eyes and shoved a laughing Adrian. Damon shook his head at his friend and turned his gaze to the window. The car was passing through the city of Palermo, and it was a beautiful sight. On one side, they could see the ocean under the bright blue sky, and on another side, they could see the city. Adrian's face lit up in amazement, but Damon remained stoic. Damn, it's really nice out here, Adrian commented, pausing for a beat before adding, she wanted to come here for her honeymoon, didn't she? Adrian didn't say her name, but Damon knew who he meant. He was talking about Isabella. She and Damon were supposed to go to Italy after the wedding for their honeymoon. At that time, Damon had never been to Italy, and Italy was Isabella's favorite place in the world. She was so excited to bring him there and take him around. Sadly, that never happened. This place is a shithole, Damon muttered and rolled the blackout window up. The beautiful view was now covered up behind the dark-tinted glass. She's better off up there anyway. Damon shut everything out for the next 10 hours, as he and his men made their way back to New Jersey on their private jet. His business deal in Italy went great, and now he could focus his energy on his other businesses at home. As soon as he stepped back into his estate, Damon walked past Talia, who greeted them at the door, and he went straight to his office to continue doing more work. Adrian only shook his head and shrugged as he approached his wife. How was Italy, baby? Talia smiled and linked her arms around Adrian's neck. It was a shithole, Adrian smiled back. I'd much rather be here with you. Damon rolled his eyes and continued walking up the stairs. He often made fun of Adrian for being a simp when it came to Talia, but secretly, Damon was happy for them. Talia and Adrian were everything Damon and Isabella could never be. Shaking the thought of Isabella from his mind, Damon made his way to his office. But before he reached the door, Damon noticed the door at the end of the hallway slightly open. It was the door to his bedroom, and it should have been locked while he was away. The maids and everyone in this estate knew that his bedroom was off limits under any circumstances. Damon narrowed his eyes and reached for his gun. Then he started taking slow and quiet steps towards the door. From the crack of the door, Damon could see the shadow of a person standing near his window. Damon's first instinct was to shoot the person, thinking it might be an intruder. But then Damon noticed that the shadow belonged to a woman. He creaked the door open and saw a girl with long brown hair standing by the window. She was wearing a simple white dress, and she had her back turned to him. "Who are you?" Damon said with his gun aimed at her. He knew very well that this wasn't one of the maids or one of his girls. The girl turned her head around, and Damon also choked on air. The lights in the room were turned off, so the only source of light was from the window. It was a little dark in there, but from where he was standing, Damon could have sworn that Isabella was standing before his very eyes. "Finally, you're back," the girl said. "I've been waiting for you." Damon put his gun down and took a step closer. His eyes were glued to her face, and his heart was doing all sorts of backflips. "Isabella?" he asked. "Isabella?" he asked. "It's me, Violet," the girl replied. Damon blinked several times, and it finally dawned on him that the girl wasn't Isabella. It was Violet, wearing one of Isabella's old dresses. She also had her hair styled like Isabella, and if he didn't know any better, the two of them could have been a twin. "What are you doing here?" Damon got his guards up again. "How'd you get in?" "Shh." Violet cut him off and strode closer. "Let's not ruin this moment by talking, can we?" For the first time in a long time, Damon found himself speechless. Violet was now standing at an arm's length away from him. He looked at her eyes and her face, and everything about her reminded him of Isabella. It caught him off guard, and it was too much to handle. "Talia put you up to this, didn't she?" he said. "She might have helped me a little, but I think we both know why I'm here." Violet acted a lot braver than before. Her voice didn't break, and her hands didn't shake as they reached for Damon's chest. "I've been waiting for you day and night, and I'm done waiting, Damon." Violet gazed up at him seductively, and she started running her fingers down his rock-hard body. Damon couldn't do anything but stand in his place and watch. "I need you to take me." She stood on her tippy toes and whispered to his ear. "Right here. Right now." Damon swallowed hard. He was looking at Violet, but he didn't see the scared and helpless girl he saw before. Her hand reached up to touch his face, and her thumb gently grazed his lower lip. Her own lips were slightly parted, and she was standing so close to him, he could feel her warm breaths hitting his neck. Damon took a deep breath, and her scent was so divine, it was making him dizzy. Her light touches, and the way she was looking at him, also lit a fire on his skin. Damon felt a deep need growing from inside him. "Take me, Damon," Violet whispered again. Her lips were only an inch away from his. "Take me now." "You don't know what you're asking for, little girl," Damon muttered as he stood completely still. "Then I guess you just have to show me." Suddenly, and without warning, Violet's lips twitched into a smile, and she pulled his neck down while aiming for his lips. Her lips crashed onto his so hard and so passionately as she deepened the kiss. Damon was caught off guard again, and the fire inside him burned brighter. He grabbed a fistful of her hair and pulled her body deeper into his chest. Violet responded by running her fingers on the back of his head, and she gave everything she got into this moment, sealing her request with a thunderous kiss. Violet's point of view. "Oh my God! This is happening. I'm kissing him." Violet was totally freaking out on the inside, but she tried her best not to let it show. She focused all her energy on the kiss, and her body molded into his instinctively. Damon's kiss and the way he was holding her were sending shivers up and down her spine. And instead of fighting it like before, Violet gave in to the sensation and let it take over her. Violet let out a moan as Damon took charge with the kiss. His tongue slipped through her parted lips, and she gasped a little. Damon didn't stop for anything. He tasted and roamed every corner of her mouth. Making a bold move, Violet responded by letting her tongue meet his. Their tongues mingled and danced, and Violet felt her entire body burning up in heat. "This feels kind of nice." "What is this?" Normally, Violet's brain would shame herself for thinking such things, but not tonight. For the past 3 days, Violet was learning tips and tricks from Talia, and she got even a whole new makeover. This was serious business, and Violet was in it to win it. She would do anything to get her way and be free. and she wouldn't let her own brain be her demise. Violet turned off the switch and ignored whatever judgment or moral codes. She was fully present at the moment, and she wouldn't leave without getting what she wanted. After spending some time with their lips locked and tongues mingling, Damon then pulled away and started kissing her neck. His hands started roaming the curves of her body, and Violet let out a sigh. Damon found the sweet spot on her neck, and Violet was losing control of her body when he started sniffing on it. Her knees were turning into jelly, and if it weren't for his hands on her body, she'd probably be a puddle of mess on the ground. Wow! This might actually not be that bad. Violet was enjoying the moment, but she spoke too soon, because the next thing she knew, Damon gripped the hem of her dress and tore the fabric apart with his bare hands. Violet's eyes jolted open in shock. The silky fabric was torn in half, and it pulled into shreds on the floor around her feet. "Remember, you're the one asking for it," Damon reminded her. His eyes were dark and hooded, and Violet's body shrunk in fear. Damon simply let out a smirk before lifting her entire body up and throwing her down on the bed. Violet felt like a rag doll being thrown around like that. But she didn't protest or say anything else. She was just grateful that the moment finally came. Everything's gonna be over soon. Just hold it in a bit longer. Violet watched in silence as Damon stood before her, and he took off his suit and tie. The moonlight shone brightly from the window, and it was highlighting Damon's body in all the right places. His shirt came off, and he was only wearing his black slacks. His chest was broad and muscular, and his abs were perfectly sculpted. Violet bit her lip instinctively as her eyes roamed every chiseled corner and curves. "I take it you like what you see," Damon said with his head leaned to the side. Violet blushed bright red in response, but luckily it was dark in the room, so he probably didn't see it. "Do you always blush at everything I say?" Damon said again. Violet quickly looked away in embarrassment, but that was too little too late. Damon let out a chuckle as he started undoing his slacks. Within seconds, it fell to the floor and his manhood sprang free. Violet tried her best not to look at it because she knew she'd be blushing crimson red again. "Are you scared?" he said as his face was hovering above hers. Damon could read her body language, and she was clamping down. He knew that she was absolutely afraid of him. Of this. "Yes," Violet nodded her head. She figured it was no use to lie. Violet thought Damon would say something to make her feel less nervous. She thought he'd tell her not to be scared or that it wouldn't hurt. But what came out of his mouth next sent chills all over her body. "Good. 'Cause it's gonna hurt," he smirked. Damon then grabbed both her thighs and spread them apart. She tried to fight back by putting her hands to his chest, but he only grabbed her hands and pinned them above her head. "Don't fight me, Violet. It'll only get ugly," he said in that dark, threatening tone. "Oh my God. This is it. This is the end." Damon had one hand pinning her down, while his other hand went to his mouth to spittle and rub on his length. He then positioned himself right between her legs, and Violet scrunched her eyes closed. She couldn't see anything, but she could feel his member rubbing against her skin. Violet thought Damon would spend some time torturing her like this, because it was always his MO, but no. Suddenly and unexpectedly, Violet felt something penetrating her body, and it was the sharpest pain she had ever felt in her life.